It's the biggest game of the home and away season. But how did it come to be? The first time Anzac Day was observed in Melbourne was December 17, 1915, the same year as the invasion of Gallipoli. It wasn't until the following year, in 1916, that the 25th of April was renamed Anzac Day. Post-World War I, vigils were held every year to commemorate those who lost their lives fighting for Australia and New Zealand. It wasn't until 1927 that all of the Australian states first observed a public holiday on the 25th of April, and it continued thereafter. One of the conditions of the Anzac Day public holiday was that commerce trading would cease, and sporting matches were banned. For instance, in 1959, when all VFL matches would be played on a Saturday, the Anzac Day public holiday also fell on a Saturday. All of the matches for that round were postponed until the next week. In 1960, after an Act of Parliament changed the rules, the VFL were allowed to play matches on April 25th. The Act required the VFL to donate a portion of ticket sales to the RSL, the Returned and Services League. So they did, and Anzac Day Football began in Victoria. In 1961, the VFL played some small matches at Windy Hill and Punt Road Oval on Anzac Day. But the VFA, however, attempted to create a marquee match, where Sandringham and Moorabbin would play on April 25th. A crowd of close to 14,000 people attended the match. This was equal to some of the larger crowds that the VFA would have seen at the time. During the mid-60s, the VFL organised representative matches on Anzac Day, where those who'd played for VFL in the most recent interstate carnival would represent other players who also represented the league. Finally, in the 1970s, the VFL played regular home and away matches on Anzac Day. In 1975, a game between Carlton and Essendon drew 77,000 people to VFL Park. And in 1977, a game between Collingwood and Richmond would draw over 90,000 fans to the MCG. During the 80s, the VFL attempted a double header where Melbourne and Sydney would play in the afternoon, followed by Geelong and North Melbourne in the evening. Only 40,000 people attended this game, and the VFL decided the logistics of a double header was just too difficult. Up until the mid-90s, it was common for one or two matches to be played on Anzac Day in the VFL. Wandering around his garden, then Essendon coach Kevin Sheedy conceived the idea for a marquee fixture on Anzac Day, thinking back to the success of Collingwood and Richmond in 1977. He pondered, how could the AFL pay tribute to those who had served our nation? So, he organised officials from Essendon, Collingwood, and the RSL to meet together. There, Sheedy proposed the idea for the marquee fixture. Both clubs agreed, the RSL agreed, and eventually, so did the AFL. And it was from here that the modern Anzac Day match as we know it was born. On April 25th, 1995, the first of the modern Anzac Day clashes as we know it was held. Coming into the match, Essendon had won their first 3 matches, while Collingwood were yet to register a win. Despite their side's very start to the season, hordes of fans arrived at the ground. It is said that nearly 20,000 fans were turned away from the gates about an hour before the first bounce, as the game had sold out. This was something rarely seen for a game outside of finals at the MCG. The first game was a classic. Both sides scoring freely, the stars of each team excelling. In the dying stages of the match, Nathan Buckley had the ball. He decided to kick short to a dominant Severio rocker, but he was cut off. The ball went to ground, the siren sounded. The scores were tied 111 each. It was a draw. The first match between the two sides on Anzac Day was a raging success. In the year 2000, it was conceived that the player who best represented the Anzac Day spirit by displaying courage, skill, self-sacrifice, teamwork, and fair play should be awarded the Anzac Day Medal. Players from previous matches were awarded this medal retrospectively. Club champions and legends of the game, Scott Pendlebury and James Hird, have won this medal on 3 occasions. In 2001, Chris Tarrant became the first and currently only player to win the award in a losing side. Some of the iconic Anzac Day medal winners include Mark McGough in 2002, who excelled on heavy rain to bring Collingwood the win. And in 2009, winner Paddy Ryder, thrown into the ruck after David Hill went down with a knee injury early in the game. He helped lead Essendon to a famous come-from-behind win. Since 1995, the ledger reads like this. Collingwood have 16 wins. Essendon have 10 wins, and both sides have 1 draw. Collingwood would win the next 3 Anzac Days after the infamous draw in 1995, and then Essendon would win the following 3 during their era of dominance. Essendon has failed to win consecutive Anzac Day matches since 2004 and 2005. Last year, it was Collingwood's day, with the plucky Jack Ginnivan shining. Who will be the man that best represents the Anzac Day spirit this year? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thanks for watching.